Hilchas Elu Pikodin Perek Chamishi. Mi shevkidu etzli moishel anim eshel pidin shvuyim uposha behem v'nignavu. Is potter shenamar lishmer v'lei lechalek laniyam. So Machne Ephraim is learning pshat that there's two dinim over here. The first din is, the question is, do you have to return it to the mafkid? The mafkid had money which was designated for aniyim or pidin shvuyim, so he had a certain tevis hanoy in this money. So the question is, do you have to reimburse the mafkid with this money? So the answer is no. The mafkid, when do you have to give back the mafkid the money? If the mafkid gave it to you lishmer for himself. Masha'inkin lechalek laniyim. So all he had was tevis hanoy. So tevis hanoy any moment. So there's no chiyuv to reimburse the mafkid with this money. And also, v'areu moment she'en litevim. L'chura einach inami, the mafkid, by him it's moment she'en litevim. But on the other hand, by him it's moment which is not lishmer. It's only lechalek laniyim. So he only has to have tevis hanoy. But l'chura the aniyim, l'chura should reimburse the aniyim. So on that the answer is no. V'areu moment she'en litevim. So memela he's potter also towards the aniyim. That's his din again. Mi shivkidu etzli moishel aniyim eshel pidin shvuyim uposha behem v'nignavu. Is potter. He's potter to return it to the mafkid. Shenamar lishmer v'lei lechalek laniyim. And since the mafkid was only had tevis hanoah, it wasn't lishmer to watch for himself. So therefore, there's no chiyuv to reimburse him. And also, he doesn't have to return to the aniyim. Now, afilu bo of ganovim and v'kodin v'hitz la'atzmei b'momen hashvuyim. And vice versa, if he wouldn't have been allowed to do it, if it would be considered not only a pshir, that would be like a mazik. So even though it's momen she'en litevim, the vice versa, he would have to reimburse the aniyim. But nevertheless, over here he's potter because because since it's designated for pidin shvuyim, so therefore so memela it's not considered that he did a ma'aseh gneva. Vice versa, if he would have done a ma'aseh gneva, because he would have been mazik b'yadayim momen aniyim, so he would have to pay. But medvar mamurim that were saying that this has a din of momen she'en litevim, b'she'en zeh hamomen hamufkid la'aniyim mokum zeh el shvuyim eila. No, it wasn't designated for specific aniyim or specific shvuyim. It was designated for aniyim or for pidin shvuyim. Aber mahoyel aniyim eila el shvuyim eila v'ariyul kotetz lehem. So then it's hariz a momen sheyesh litevim. So then it is momen tevim. Yishalim and posha a yishavish li posha keder kol Hashem. So then if he was a prishay, not only if he was a mazik, even if it was just a prishay, so we learned before that a prishay would be potter on momen she'en litevim. What's considered momen she'en litevim if there's no specific aniyim that it was designated for? Masha'inkin, if it was designated for aniyim mokim zes, even though it's also there's a number of aniyim, but since this is already designated for aniyim mokim zeh or shvuyim, these shvuyim elu, so therefore it goes into the gather of momen sheyesh litevim, and therefore he has to be nishba a shvus hashemrim sheli pasha, or he has to pay if he was pasha. Halacha beis. Hamafkid etzel chaverei momen ekelim chshuvim ubo of ganovim v'kodam v'noslam apikodam lahatzalasmi. So ganovim come to his house, and he has momen or kelim chshuvim, and he gives the ganav these kelim chshuvim in order to save himself, that they shouldn't bother him. It does say im haya omud shehu bal momen. And he was in himself a wealthy person, and the pashtus the ganovim came in order to be ganva from him, and maybe he went ahead and he was matzalatzmi with someone else's momen. So then he has to reimburse him. Im hoya omud shehu bal momen is chayiv shel cheskosei bepashtus shebiglo leibo haganov. The ganovim came because of him. V'nimtza zeh hitzalatzmei b'momen chaveri, and then he's not allowed to do. And he's not allowed to do that. He's not allowed to be matzalatzmi b'momen chaveri shalei amanas l'shalom. He has to pay back the momen chaveri, even if he's being matzalatzmi for dinner nefoshes. He has to pay back when he's matzalatzmi b'momen chaveri. However, ve'ein me'eni omud. The pastors, he's not a wealthy person. So the Ganovim, why Mitlamol, the Ganovim are coming to his house with pastors? Because they heard that he has a Pekodin. So the Taka came for this Pekodin. So it's not he's really being Matzel Atzmi B'mam Chaveri. They came for this Pekodin. The Eini Yomud is Cheskosish Libo Ella, the Shema Pekodin, because they heard that there's a Pekodin there. Upater, V'chein Kol Kietz B'zeh. Halachi Gimel. Hamafkel Eitzel Chaveri Keil Meperes. Ubo ganovim v'gonvum b'fonav. He saw the way they're taking it. If he would have screamed, he wouldn't have been able to stop the ganovim. But if he would have screamed, in other words, a pishay is not only someone that left it open for the ganav to come. If he sees the ganav there, and he's able to somehow or another prevent the Gana from taking it by screaming and calling for help, so that's his obligation, and if he didn't do it, that's also constitutes a Pshia. Halacha Dalet, Shnayim shivkidu etzel echad, zem meya v'zem mosayim. V'chol echad mishneim eimer, ani hu shivkadete mosayim, v'hashemer eimer eini yideh. So each one gave them, one person gave him 100, the other one gave him 200. They're both claiming that they gave, each one claims that he gave 200, and he says eini yideh. Now the Maisa is, the question is he Amei de B'mikzas? Is he Amei de B'mikzas to each one? Each one is claiming I gave you 200, and he's tining that I gave you, that I only know about 100, and the other 100 I don't know. So you could say it's Chamshin Yadayna v'Chamshin Leyadayna is Mitech She'eni Yochel Lishav Mishal. That could be one tzir of this din. There could be another tzir where he's not Amei de B'mikzas, because Lepel, he gave back the 100 to each one, the 100 that he knows for sure that he owes them, he gave back to each one, so it's Halach. And Mamela, he doesn't have a din of a Meid of Mikzas. There could be like two tziurim over here where he is a Meid of Mikzas or he's not a Meid of Mikzas. Now, if he would be a Meid of Mikzas, so the pashtas, the din is Mitech Sheni Yachol Lishav Mishalom. So why does the other person have to swear be a Nishba V'Neitel? So on that, the Maggid Mishnah says, because Lepel, since we know for sure that one of them he doesn't owe to, normally, Mitech Sheni Yachol Lishav Mishalom, there's one Tiveya, he's tining a lot. The other one saying Chamshin Yadayna v'Chamshin Leyadayna, so we say Mitech Sheni Yachol Lishav Mishalom. Mashiach over here, we know for sure that one of them is lying. So Memela, so therefore we say that he should be a Nishba V'Neitel. So that comes out that the Chiddush is not the Neitel, the Chiddush is the Nishba. The Emes Yishluchur should be a Neitel because it's Mitech Sheni Yachol Lishav Mishalom. But over here we say no, he's a Nishba V'Neitel. Then there's another tzad. There could be a tzad where he's takanana made of a mikzas. So lechura, why does he have to pay? Lechura, if he's not a made of a mikzas, so there's no din of nishba of mitech sheni yachol lishav mishalim. So now there's another din, because since he was pisheya, lepel, someone was mafkat something by him, and lepel, he should know how much it was. He should know on each one how much it was, and lepel, he doesn't know. So therefore, Chacham institute, it's not meikar the dinner. The Amos, he doesn't owe the money because it's lav dafka that he owes it. It's a mesim chaver overaya. But nevertheless, since he was a peshay and the fact that he doesn't know how much that person was mafkid, so therefore he has, the other person has a din of a nishba v'neitel. So the question, he's definitely a nishba v'neitel. The question is the chiddush the nishba or the chishba the neitel? Nachamot. Halacha dal. Shnayim shevkidu eitzel echad, zem meya v'zem mosayim, v'chol echad mishneim eimer ani shevkadati ha-mosayim, v'hashemir eimer eini yidea. So the din is, Yishava kol echad mem shehivkad mosayim, kedin kol nishba v'neitel. And v'yitin mosayim, l'zeh mosayim l'zeh, v'yafsid mehem mebeisei. Why should he be mafsid mehem mebeisei? So he says, Sharehu Pesheya, Shahoya le'lichtiv shem kol echad al kishalei. So the Rambam is learning that, the Rambam is speaking about that the chiddush is that he has to pay. The chiddush that he has to pay, why does he have to pay? Because he was a Pesheya. He should have been writing Kis kol echad, and therefore the Chacham instituted that since he was a Pesheya, so therefore each one of them could be a Nishba v'neitel. Lefichach, since the only reason why he has to give each one Masayim is because he was a Pesheya. Lefichach, imi viu le'ashnayim ke'echad. Hashlei shmei bekrach echad. They brought it together. They brought together 300, and it was, they mentioned that 200 belonged to one and 100 belonged to the other. Then ubo v'tovu v'chol echad eima Masayim shali. And now they're being teveh, they're saying there was a krach, 200 of it was mine, and each one is tying 200 of it was mine. And they mentioned it, but Lepel, they brought it bekrach echad. So here the din is Nason Me'el Lazel, Me'el Lazel. He gives each one only a Me'el. V'hashar yeh munachatz li'ad le'elam. Ayat she'yed le'chaveri. He doesn't give back the third Me'el until one of them is made, or they make an agreement. Why? Shaharei yoimer lem, kivin sheri'isi she'einat makpidim zem zeh, v'hiveisem bekrach echad. Is le'itrach di atzmi leide v'lisker tomid mi bala me'el, mi bala masayim. It wasn't my chiyuv. Since you brought it b'krach echad, so I didn't really have a chiyuv to know which one is the me'el, which one is the bala masayim. And therefore I wasn't a pisheya. Since I wasn't a pisheya, so therefore they didn't institute that you should be a nishba v'neitel. The nishba v'neitel even by a pisheya would be a takana d'rabbanan. Because Lepel, I was a pisheya, but Lepel, who says that I owe you the money? When I have money that I know of yours and I was pisheya, so that's called, that's the din of a shemer chinam. But over here, I was a pisheya that I didn't know how much money you gave me. So that's also an institution of the Rabbanan. But on that, that's only if I was pisheya. V'chein mifkidu etzli. So we're talking about over here what's meo masai, and the same thing applies to kelim. V'chein mifkidu etzli shnei kelim, echad gadol v'echad katan. V'chol echad v'echad eimer ani ubala gadol. I'm the one that gave you the larger keli, the more expensive keli. V'ashem re'eni yedeh. So again, yishavu shneim v'yitna gadol le'echad mem udmei gadol l'sheni v'yishar le'akadol. So over here again, he has to give each one. One he gives back the gadol, the other one he pays the dmei gadol, and he remains with the cotton. That's talking about if each one brought it separately. And lepel, he should have remembered which brought what. However, they brought it together. So again, it's neisen hakotel echad mehem. Umitech hagadol neisen dmei hakotel l'sheni. So he sells the gadol, and from the gadol he gives the dmei hakotel l'sheni. V'ashar yiyeh munach etzlei. So that's the same thing. The same thing of Mona Masayim, no that is there, Kli Godel and Kli Kotten. V'chein, mi shetavu shnayim, zeim raniu bala pikotten, v'zeim raniu. So the case before was that both of them were taka, gave him a pikotten. The question, which one gave the 200, which one gave the 100, which one gave the larger keli, which one gave the smaller keli. Over here we have a case where two people came together and one of them gave a pikotten, and now they're both mourning that he's the Bala Pikotten. Misha tavu shnayim zeimer aniu Bala Pikotten, v'zeimer aniu v'ashem reimer echad mikemu. I know one of them was the Bala Pikotten, but v'eini yidei miu is again yishalom l'shneim. He has to pay both of them. So notice, even though this is not an ikri d'din, this is an institution with Rabbanon that he has to pay both of them. And Bepashto, the Ram doesn't say over here b'shvua, but over here before each one swears, kol echad, each one is nishba v'netel. So the passage over here is also a nishba v'netel. V'chein shnayim she'ifkidu shtei behemes etzureya u'meisa achas mem and ve'eni yedeh shel mi hoisa. Again, he definitely took two behemoths from one. Each person he took two behemoths. But lepel, one of the behemoths dies, and he didn't know which one, so he doesn't know who is the baal of this behemoth. So the din is again yishalim l'shneim. So just like the case, he's not sure who the mafkid is. He doesn't know who is the mafkid that still has a behemoth. He has a behemoth right now. He doesn't know who to give it back to give it back to whose behemoth died. So the din is yishalim l'shneim. He has to pay to both of them. That's talking about if they each one gave it to him separately, and Mamela, it was really his responsibility to know whose behemoth was which. However, so if they were mafkid be'edre shleimi daite, so then he's not mechuyev to know which one is which. So here is miniach ha-behema b'neim. So he puts the behema b'neim and says, listen, I have nothing to do. He knows, I have no responsibility towards you because you are hifkidi be'edri shleimi daite and mistalik. So he's added a picture. He doesn't have any chiyuv. Before, he was a balapikot and he had a chiyuv hashava. And he's not really sure whether, he knows he wasn't mekayim the chiyuv hashava. Masha'inkin over here, he doesn't have a chiyuv hashava. They were miniach be'edri shleimi daite. So he's miniach b'neim mistalik. And lepel, they don't take it either, because lepel, since someone was a muzik in his behema, and there's like, and they're both arguing about it, and it's eina chaluki yechilili esemes al kol panim. So therefore, v'tia munachas ad sheyedo echad lechaveri at sheyirtzu lach lekesa. So over here the din is that it should be munachas until ad sheyedo echad lechaveri at sheyirtzu lach lekesa. Now this is similar to the din that we learned before, Marshal, when they put it b'krach echad. So he's not responsible to give each one 200. So the third 100 he keeps until there's a clerk or their moida. So by money is not a big deal to keep it. He'll keep the money shlish. He'll be munach etzlei until there'll be a clerk. Masha'inkan over here by a behemoth for him to keep the behemoth as a tircha. So therefore that's why he's mistalik. He says, I don't want to have anything to do with the behemoth. The tiyah menachas, I'm not sure who takes it either. Yishnam when it says, or Bezdin takes it, maybe they sell it. In other words, he doesn't give it back to anyone. Because Lepel over here knows each one is tiny that it's his, and the Mela, and each one, and so by Shnai Mevs and Betalis, we'll learn that over there, so we Yachleiko, Mashenkan over here, since, like the Gemara says, Benigam Mon Shlishi, that ain't a Chaluki Yechil Yasemes, so therefore, over here we don't say Yachleiko, over here we say Yehimunach. Allah Chahei. Hamafkid Peiris Eitzel Chaveri, Hareze Leia Arvim in Peiris. We should keep it separately because Peiris sometimes rot. You have to know how much you rotted. So if you keep it Peiris separately, so you know clearly what he gave you, that's what you give him back. Now, Avar the Irva, if Lepel, he mixed those Peiris with his Peiris, is Yechashiv Kama Hoyu Peiris. So how much Peiris did he have? The Kama Hoya Pikodin, and how much was the Pikodin? And then the Yira Kama Chosra Akil, how much got missing, in other words, how much it got ruined. And then the Yechashiv Chisar Na Pikodin, V'yitn Li Achashi Yishava. So Lepeil, Achashi Yishava, that this is what happened. So no, someone gave him one saw, a Pikodin of one saw. He already had 10 saw of his own. Now he went ahead and mixed the one saw with the 10 saw. So there were 11 saw there. And now there's only 10 saw left. There's only 10 saw left. So we understand that an 11th of this 11 saw got lost. So mainly he knows that so then we assume that from each saw an 11th got lost. So mainly he gives him back the saw minus an 11th of a saw. He gives him 10 11ths of a saw. Now that's the cheshbon. And he has to swear that that's what happened. Nistapik mem, v'leyoda kama nistapik, knows if he just mixed it together and he never used it, and then he sees that it got lost, some of it got lost, so then he could calculate what percentage of it got lost, and Memela figure out what percentage of that Pikodin was also lost. Masha'inkin, if he also used this mixture, in other words, first he mixed that other person's produce with his, and he used it, and now it's less, so the question is how much did that produce lose its value? So the din is Yetzilei Chesreidus. He has to take out what Chazal told us, what normally is lost from the value of produce. Lechitim ula'eres, koluf, for wheat and for shelled rice, is arbas kabm umachzel l'chol kur. 4.5 kabm for each kur. A kur is 30 saw, and a saw is 6 kabm, so it's 4.5 kabm for each kur. L'se'erim u'ledoichen, for barley and for millet, is Tishas Kabm l'chol kur. That's 1.5 saw. Tishas Kabm l'chol kur. Lekusmin u'lezera pishtin. Lekusmin is for buckwheat, and lezera pishtin is for flaxseed, bigiv oilav in its stalks. U'le'eres she'eni kolif, and for rice, which is not shelled rice. So then it's shalish soyin l'chol kur. U'kamid hazes l'chol shana. When you say this is how much it normally gets ruined, it means per year. Per year, we could assume that that's how much it got ruined. And therefore, so when a person gives you something, a certain amount, and you're not really sure how much you have to give him back, so you could assume that that's what got ruined, and therefore, you have to give him of good produce, what he originally gave you, minus what you would assume gets ruined per year. Bamedvar mamurim, when do we say that you deduct for what's spoiled, is shemoded leib mesageden, v'hirzil mesageden. So the time of the year, the harvest time, that's when the original medida was, that's when the mafkid gave it to the nifkad as a pikodin, and now the nifkad is returning back to the mafkid, also mesagerin, the following year mesagerin, or 2 years later mesagerin. So you have to assume, and over here you don't know exactly how much spoiled, so you assume that the spoilage was this shiurim that we just mentioned. Aval imoded leib mesagerin, the hirzib mesag shamim, when he originally, when the mafkid gave it to the nifkad, was b'mesagerin when they harvested, right after the harvest. And lepil, now the nifkad is giving it back to the mafkid. B'mesak shamim, which is already, mesak shamim, it swells because of the moisture. It swells. So here is ein meitzlei chesreidus, mipnei shein misidus. In other words, when you give back a saw, when you take a saw, in mesagerin, so this saw, b'mesak shamim, will be more than a saw. Because it swells, because Mesak Sham it swells. So now when you're giving back, let's say you took it a year ago b'Mesak Begein, and now you're giving it back b'Mesak Shamim. So even though on one hand you want to deduct because there was spoilage, but on the other hand, we could assume that even after the spoilage, it's the same share. In other words, a saw that you got Begein, and now you're returning the saw is really less than the saw. That's already the deduction of the spoilage. And maybe you don't make any deductions, and you give him back the same share that he gave you. That's din b'negei when over there we're talking about dry material. You gave him wheat, you gave him rice, you gave him millet, you gave him flax seeds. V'chein meitzil ishtus liyayin. You give him, if someone gives you wine, and now the question is how much wine do you have to return? And again, you mix that wine with your wine, so you don't have clearly what his wine is. So you take out 1/6 of the wine and you give back 1/6 of the wine. We assume that 1/6 of the wine was lost. 1/6 of the wine was lost in the dregs that fell and the sediment that fell, and al derech zeh in what was absorbed in the barrel. So mele 1/6 of the wine was lost. And ushleishes lugn shemen lemea lug. And for a male lug, you give 3%. Shleishis lug mei, so you give a sixth of the wine. Sixth of the wine is much more than 3%. A sixth of the wine. And then ushleishis lug nishem l'mei lug. For oil, you take off. In other words, if you had oil, someone gave you oil, and now that oil was mixed with your oil, and now you have to give back that person oil. So we can assume that 3 lugim of oil was lost from 100 lugim. What's the cheshbon of 3 lugim of oil? Because mehan lugim mechta shmarim, we could assume that from the 100 lugim of oil, so a 1.5 lugim fell in the sediment of the oil, and also the lugim mechta bella, and 1.5 lug was absorbed by the barrel. If we're talking about pure oil that had no sediment, that had no is einimetzele shmarim, so then you only take off 1.5 for 100 lug. You don't take off 3 because the 3 were taken off because 1.5 was the cheshbon of the sediment that fell in the oil. Okay, there's no sediment. If it was old barrels, so Mele they were fully absorbed. Mele they can't absorb anymore. So then there's any metzli bella, so you're not metzli bella. So Mele, this din of shemen only applies that you're saying 3 lugim you take off 100 lugim of shemen is only when we're talking about not shemen mezukik and not kankanim, which are already kankanim yishonim. Mashenkin, if it's shemen mezukik and kankanim yishonim, so then you would take off nothing. Halacha vov. Hifkid etzlei peiros she'enim medudim. He gave him peiros which enim medudim. He didn't really measure how much peiros it is. And now the irvam im peiros, if this person, this nifkad, went ahead and mixed it with his peiros, which he shouldn't have done, and volei madadan, he didn't measure it. So he had someone's peiros, and now he took those peiros and he mixed it with his peiros. He doesn't really know how much peiros that person had. So the din is hareze pisheh. This fact that he did what he did is a pisheh. He had no right to do it. In bala pikod neimer kach v'kachoyu, and vashemer eimer eini yidea. So the din is yishalim b'lei shvua. Over here he has to pay b'lei shvua. Sharichiya v'atzmei b'tashlumen. He's definitely chayiv b'tashlumen. He knows he's chayiv b'tashlumen. He has to give back some of the peiros. Ve'eini yidea kamu chayiv, and he doesn't know how much he's mechuyev. And v'nimtza mechuyev shvua ve'eini yochel yishava. So he goes into the gather of a mechuyev shvua ve'eini yochel yishava. Ukazeh hater Rabbeisai, Rabbi Yosef Halevi v'Rabbi. Now the Emes, Rabbi Yosef Halevi is the Rimagash. Now the Lepel, the Ravid brings that Rabbeisai ain't made him king because by Chamshin Yadayna v'Chamshin Yadayna, it's clear he knows that he owes him 50, and Lepel he only owes him the 50. The Seislam over here, it's not like over here by the Chamshin Yadayna he owes him the 50. So maybe he's a made of mikzas. And the other chamshin is leyadainas. So really, it's a din of mitechshin yochel yishava mishalim. Mashenkin over here, he's not saying he owes him 50. The payers are here. The payers are actually here. So Mela, since the payers are actually here, so lechura it's al der v'helech. He doesn't really know how much payers are here, but he knows whatever is yours is here. So therefore, lechura, the question is, how do we say that this is a din of mitechshin yochel yishava mishalim? That's I think the ha'ara of the Ravid on this din, but the Upel the Rambam is going to say, like the Rambam is going to teach us clearly, that since he's definitely being murdered that he owes, and he doesn't know how much he owes, so it's al derek like chamshi yadayna, v'chamshi leyadayna, so it's mitech she'en yochel yishav mishalim. V'chein, now the Rambam continues, kol shemer, she'nes chayiv l'shalim, he has to pay. V'omer eni yedek hamadam mani chayiv l'shalim, v'abal l'meim onu yedim kach v'kacho yishava. So it's again yitlu b'lei shvua. So then it's yitlu b'lei shvua. Why? Because over here there's the din of mitech she'en yochel yishav mishalim. But who is she yitanei davar sham muten bei? It has to be that the bailim are money from the nifkat, something which makes sense that the bailim had. And the yeshlish, that's mashenkin of the bailim are tining something which doesn't make sense that the bailim would have. So then there's no din that mitech she'en yochel yishav mishalim. Whereas when a person months from someone something, and he's money from someone something which the Seichel says that he couldn't have had such type of an item, so much money. So therefore, even though that person is a meid b'miktsas, and Lepel, the other party, is saying any yedea, nevertheless, we don't say this din of mitech. That's what the Rambam is saying. And v'yesh l'shemer lahachrim al mishal ikech mimenu yesem and aroyloi. Lepel, he pays him back because the din of mitech she'eni yochel yishava mishalim. But on the other hand, he could be machrim if someone's taking money from shalek din. Now, minayin shadin kachu. So the Rambam is saying, how do I know this din? So again, the Rambam is saying that when a person comes along and says, I gave you this and this pikadon, and he's saying, I know you gave me a pikadon, I don't know how much the pikadon is. I don't know how much the Bikoden was. So over here we say that Mitech Sheini Yochel L'Shavim Mishalem. Haga Atzmachom. Shehifkid Etzlei Kismol Izuvim. Person gave someone a Kismol Izuvim, Upashe Be'abayla. Upashe Be, and he was Pashe Be. Abayla Meimrim Masayim Dinu Hoyube. Ba'Shem Reime Vade Shehoyube Dinim. I know there was Dinim. Aval Eni Yedea Kama Hoyu. Is Nimtzes Slchura the same thing, Zeketayim Masayim, Behedlei B'Mitzas. He's tying the Omi of 200, and he's saying, I'm Moed the Mitzas, I'm V'Amar Hashar Eni Yedea, but I don't know how much more. I know for sure I owe you some, but I don't know how much. That's the din that we're going to learn Hilchas Tein V'Nitten, that Mitech She'eni Yochel L'Shavim Mishalem. So again, so the Rambam is saying, when a person comes over to someone, he says, I gave you a Pikadon, and this is how much the Pikadon was worth. And that person is saying, I know you gave me a Pikadon, but I don't know how much it was worth. So that's this din. That's this din. So you're being moided that you owe money. You don't know how much it was. So it's a moided b'mitzas. And on the other, you're saying, ain't you there? So we institute the din of Mitech She'eni Yochel L'Shavim Mishalem. Just saying, in the case where the Pikadon is not here, the question is how much money is owed. So the Chur, it's Pashat. The din of the Rambam is Pashat. Masha'inkin, the Chiddush of the Rambam is that over here, L'chura, the Pikadon is here. Whereas the Pikadon is here. It's not like it's not here. Because L'chura, the payers are here. The question is how much of the payers that I possess is yours. So L'chura, I don't know how much payers I possess. So there's a certain amount that's, let's say for sure, is yours. But the rest I don't know. So L'chura, why is that called a Meid of a Mitzvah? So on that the vort is because since it's not clear how much it is, and it's mixed with his produce, so therefore that goes into together also that it's not a halach. It's not a halach because, and he was also a posha because he was a posha. So the Rambam, like mentioned before, that he was a posha by the fact that he was mixed it up, and so that somehow or another gives him also this din of a meidem mitzvah. You have to understand. But that's the diun. So you see that the Rambam is like quoting the Rif. He say the Rimagash because they hated Rabbeisai, and the Raiva is taka argues is nachamol. When a person comes along and says, you owe me a certain amount of money, that person answers, 50 of it I know I owe you. The other 50 I don't know I owe you. So for sure he's a din of Mitech She'eni Yochel L'Shavim Mishalem. Al derev zeh, if a person comes to someone, he says, I gave you a Pikadon, and it was worth $100. And the person, he says, I know you gave me a Pikadon, and I know it was worth at least 50, but I don't know it was worth 100. I don't have it anymore. I was Pasha. It's not here anymore. So I owe you 50. So I'm saying I owe you 50, but the other 50 I'm saying I don't know. So the Chura, it's Pasha that you have a din of Mitech She'eni Yochel L'Shavim Mishalem. Over here, the issue is because Hivke that's like payers, and those payers aren't gone. The payers are here. He's saying, I don't know how much of your payers are here. So there's a certain amount of payers that are yours, but the other part I don't know. So the Rambam is saying on this also, that din also goes into together Mitech She'eni Yochel L'Shavim Mishalem. And on that, L'chura, the Raiva is arguing, saying, no, it's not a Mitech She'eni Yochel L'Shavim Mishalem, because L'peil, since he's not saying I owe you money, he's saying that some of the payers that are here are yours. So it's like Halach. Normal Halach says, I know exactly what's yours, this is yours. Vaita Vesachlish. Over here, he doesn't know. So the question is if that goes into together of Halach. Halacha Zayin. Meis Aviv, v'iniach le'sak tzor, v'ivkidel etzel chavere upashavei. So the mafkid doesn't really know what's in the sack. And the nifkad also doesn't know what's in the sack. So the mafkid gave the nifkad a sack, which he yashin from his father, and Lepel, the nifkad definitely was Pishea. He was made that he was Pishea. We know he was Pishea. But he doesn't know what he was Pishea on. I have no idea what it was there. Maybe there was diamonds in there. So they're both they're both a Shema v'Shema. They both don't know. What we know is that there was a Pikadon and that the Shemer was Pishea, but we don't know how much was in that Pikadon. So Shuris Adin Shani Emer B'Tainazu Sheishava Hashemer B'Takonis Chachamim Sheini B'Shusei. So first of all, he has to swear Sheini B'Shusei. That's what we're going to learn B'Hamshach, that even when you pay, you have to always swear Sheini B'Shusei. And also V'Yichlal B'Shvuosei Sheini Yedeh B'Vadai Shahoye B'Yesa Al Shav V'Kach V'Kach. In other words, he has to swear that he really doesn't know that the value was more than whatever he's saying the value is. In other words, maybe it was something very little value. So he knows that it was some value, but he doesn't know that it was more than that, because there's always a possibility that he knew that there was Zohar Kesef in there. But Lepel, he has to swear that he doesn't know bevade shoye beyesal shove kach v'kach. There's no tainas bari over here. The only thing that's clear is that there was a mafkid and a nifkad, and that he was a pesheya. That's the only thing that's clear. So since it's clear that he was a pesheya, so he has to pay. How much does he have to pay? He has to pay what he's made that he definitely was worth. He also has to swear that he doesn't know that he owes more. That's the number one. Now that I'm saying nochadin, ma'ase be'echad shehivkid sak tzor etzel chaveri u'poshabe. Over here again, he was mafkid a sak tzor etzel chaveri u'poshabe. But over here, the case before, the mafkid was any idea. Over here, we're talking about hamafkid eimer choli zov margolus yigesem hoyebe. The mafkid is telling that it was very valuable things in the sack. Vashemer eimer any idea. The shemer says, I don't know. Shema sigim echel hoyebe. So the mafkid is telling definitely there was various things very valuable, and the shemer is saying any idea. Shema sigim echel hoyebe. And lepel the shemer was a posha. So the mafkid is telling, I gave you an item which is worth a lot of money, and you're definitely a pasha, and he's saying, any idea? If Amru Chachamim, that the din is Yeshava Balapikodin V'yitam. So over here, the Balapikodin is a Nishba V'netel. That's the din. Because since he definitely gave him a Pikodin, and he definitely was a Pisheya, and the question is, how much was the Pikodin worth? The mafkid is telling was worth a certain amount, and the Nifkad is telling any idea. So therefore, the mafkid is a Nishba V'netel. Something which makes sense that he should have such type of monies, or maybe someone gave it to him to be mafkid. But I'll call upon him if he's someone that's amud bey or amud, that they'll be mafkid by him, and he's tining that this is what happened, and the nifkad is not tining a tainas bari against him, and the nifkad was a pesheya, so that gives the mafkid the right to be a nishba v'netel. Now the question is, l'chura, we're learning the whole time before that there's a musig of mitech she'en yochel l'shava mishalem. So, and then if the mitech she'en yochel l'shava mishalem, since he's being made on part of it, and the other part he doesn't know, so l'chura he goes into the gather of a mitech she'en yochel l'shava mishalem, and memela he should be chayiv to pay the rest without a shvuas anoitlin. Why does the mafkid have to swear? L'chura, the nifkad should have to pay the money al tzadin of mitech she'en yochel l'shava. So that the Rambam is going to answer. That the answer is because he's not a mitech. No, mitech she'en yochel l'shava is only when you're a meida b'mikzas. If you're a meida b'mikzas, you have a din of a nishba mitech she'en yochel l'shava mishalem. A meida b'mikzas has to be a meida me'ein atayna. That person is tining you. I gave you a lot of payers, and I'm being meida that I took some of the payers. I know some of the payers I took, but lepel, so I'm a meida b'mikzas on some of the payers. Masha'inkin over here, we're talking about he's tining that you had the zov. And he's tining, maybe there was sigim and chel, maybe there were other things there. So he's not really being a meida me'ein atayna. So he's not being meida me'ein atayna, he doesn't go into the gather meida me'mikzas. Meil over here is another din, that since the mafkid gave him something, and lepel he was a pesheya, and the mafkid is tining that he gave a lot, so here the chacham instituted that the mafkid should be a nishba v'netel. That's what the Ram says. Why does the Balapikon have to swear? Why don't we say that the Nifkad has to be a Mitech She'en Yochel L'Shav Mishalem because he's paying something, and L'chura, the other party, is saying any idea. Because over here there's no Chiyav Shvur. The whole thing of Mitech She'en Yochel L'Shav Mishalem is because he's a Chiyav Shvur. Why is there no Mechiyav Shvur? Shafila Heida V'Ama Bari L'Shayel L'Moli Sigim. V'Amav Kedem Margol L'Shoya, there would be a Tainus Bari against each other. Is also Hashem and Nishba Hesses V'Nifter. If he would have a Tainus Bari, he wouldn't have to swear a Shvuas made of a mixas. Because since he's tining that there was Kesev, and he's tining that there was Sigim, and there was Bali Sigim, so Memela, so it's Tani Chitim V'Hedli B'Seirim, and Memela there's no din of Shvuas made of mixas. V'chein Kol Kietzav is a Behilches, Tein V'Nitni Yisbaru, Ikri Advarim, when he's called a made of mixas, when he's not called a made of mixas. So over here, the mafkid is tining that I put kesev, and he's tining maybe there was sigim, so there was never really a hidob mixas atayna. So since there was no hidob mixas atayna, there's no din of a shvuas made of mixas, so there's no din of mitech. But on the other end, there's another din that since the mafkid was definitely mafkid, and lepel he was definitely pesheya, and the mafkid is tining a tainas bari, and he's tining a tainas shema. So the din is that the mafkid is a nishba v'netel.